Nigeria's weather used to be predictable. We knew when the rains would come. Vaselines were on the store shelves just in time for Hamatan. Except that's not true anymore. The rains come late or early, or actually whenever they want. When they do, the dam should overflow, which means more power, but lights still go out. So is it water or is it something else? Engineer Lamu runs dams that turn water into power. Kainji, Jeba, and the rest. Quarter of Nigeria's electricity depends on the rain showing up on schedule. So, what happens to power systems built for weather that's changing? You probably have heard of Kainji. You should know the rest. I am Emeka Opara, and today we're connecting the dots on hydropower in Nigeria. Let's get into it. Welcome to another episode of Connecting the Dots. I'm joined by Engineer Lamu, who collectively look after over 2,500 megawatts of the Nigerian grid. Engineer Lamu, welcome to Connecting the Dots.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me. I'm glad to be here.
Looking at mainstream's experience since the power sector, since the privatization, it's easy to look at the successes and flawed based on everything that has happened. But it took leadership, dedication, and just a focus to get things done. And you've been under the leadership for a while now. Could you walk us through your background as it pertains to how you've been able to really drive this company?
Thank you very much. You've said the name already. I'm Engineer Lamu Audu, a mechanical engineer by training. And somehow I started my career in the public sector. I worked with my state government, that is Borno State, for a while. And I found out that my passion of really practicing what I learned isn't going to be achieved working in the public sector, especially at the state level. So I decided to join the then National Electric Power Authority, that was NEPA.
Yeah.
Yes, in 1996. And after going through the graduate training for 2 years, it was a special training I was fortunate to have gone through. I went through both thermal and hydro operations. I got posted to Kainji. Actually, I chose to be posted to Kainji, and people will be surprised as to why, because Kainji happens to be the oldest hydropower plant, being our premier hydropower plant. And there were actually at that time a lot to be done. So the only way you can learn is to work at an old asset.
So that's why you chose to post it there.
Yes, because if it's a new asset, you won't have challenges to really learn from. So I really requested that I be posted to KNG, and that was where I started my full-time career as a power engineer. And I got through and got elevated up to the position of principal manager turbines in KNG before I was deployed to Jeba as an assistant general manager maintenance. Yes. So you can see that I moved from KNG to Jeba after a while. So, and having served as an assistant manager maintenance for 2 years, I got promoted, or rather took over as the CEO of Java Hydropower Plant after the then CEO had retired. Yes, so you can see how I to and I was managing Jeba when the whole process of the privatization in the power sector kicked in. Yeah, so and we midwife the whole process, the unbundling of NEPA to PSCN, where the whole sector was unbundled in preparation for the privatization.
Yes.
Yes,
That was a lot of work. A
exactly.
lot of
So
work.
we were all part of it, and it went through up to a point where the whole bidding process and all that was concluded, and mainstream became successful concessionaire to take over Kainji and Jeba. And reasons for putting Kainji and Jeba together was actually technical because they are caskets. They operate in caskets. You know, the reservoir at Kainji is 4 times the size of reservoir in Jeba. So apparently you operate Jeba from Kainji hydrologically.
Okay.
Yes, so
Okay.
if you separate the two power plants, giving them to two different companies or operators, there will definitely be challenges downstream. So it was a well thought out idea that the two has to be managed, and that was a very good idea. Otherwise, it would have been something different. And we moved in, and on taking over, um, fortunately for mainstream, I happen to know the two power plants very well.
So it was a no-brainer to bring you into
No
lead.
brainer at all. And at the time, Kainji was handed over to the concessionaire. Actually, no single generating unit was operating out of the eight. Of the
Wow.
760 megawatt installed capacity,
None.
none was on grid.
So
Zero.
so they missed you, I guess, right?
So it means that that was our biggest challenge. And fortunately, of the six generating units in Jeba, only one was out. So apparently, we were using Jeba then
To
to manage
Kainji.
Kainji. Yes, up to a point where we now began to put in the capacity recovery program now to be able to recover the units, because it's not something you all go into and think of bringing them all at once. It has to be well planned. Finance issues are there, technical issues are there, even the manpower, a lot of things. Especially at that initial stage of taking over, where we took over the two power plants with over 1,000 staff. Yes, so you have to do a lot of rejigging of the staff itself, the manpower, the human resource that is. And then, a lot of challenges really at that
Hmm.
initial stage. And
Hmm.
so we started the capacity recovery program gradually. Initially, it was in-house, just trying to bring back, even at a deloaded level, some of the units that we feel we can recover something, before we begin to take each and every one of them to do the complete rehab.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, because it's beyond overhaul. Interestingly, to note is that since commissioning, both plants that has operated as at the time we took over, KND has operated for over 50 years, Jeba around 40 something. None had gone through uh, statutory overhaul. None of the generating units.
So when people say privatization is not successful, that's a
I
fallacy,
think that's
right?
just people just want to
Because
be just want to be heard.
clearly, if you haven't overhauled a power plant in 40 years, how's it going to run?
What do you expect from it?
It's going to
So
crash out.
yes, definitely, we're not talking about modernization, just the statutory overhaul that should have been taking place after every 5 years, statutorily.
Mhm.
Nothing has happened.
Yeah.
And the another danger is that it's not just the electromechanical. What about the dam structure itself? which is a very high, it's of a high risk factor. Something goes
If it
wrong
breaks,
with six, we're talking about what? Uh, 12, 16 billion cubic meters of water behind Kainji Dam.
12.
Yes, because the live storage and the actual distance is 16 and 12. So what we can use for operation is about 12 billion. But what is actually behind it, that'll be 16.
And if that breaks, then
You can imagine that
calamities.
big calamity. In fact, just to give you an insight of what
Yes.
could happen if that dam breaks, God forbid, it will wipe out Port Harcourt into the sea.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yes, you heard me well.
It will wipe out the
Port
whole
Harcourt.
city.
I'm talking of Port Harcourt. That's the one. I'm not even talking about Lokoja or all the other
So it will,
delta. It will wipe out everything. 16 billion cubic meters of water.
yeah, so that should never
So
happen.
that should not happen.
Wow.
Yes,
That's
that should not happen at all.
that's a lot of
So you
force.
just imagine the kind of lack of maintenance and care that all these assets have been going through before privatization, because that was, in fact, apart from the recovery efforts we are putting, we had to carry out immediately, we had to undertake an assessment of the condition of the dams.
Mm-hmm.
It was necessary.
Of course.
Yes, so that at least, even because the government should have done that before handing over to us, but
If you,
unfortunately that didn't happen. So we had to do it to know the status of the assets we've been handed over to, especially the one in Kainji. It's called more water because Jeba is just about a quarter of the capacity. Yes, of Kainji. And it's newer, at least. It was commissioned in 1980. We started operation in 82, actually.
Okay.
Yes, and was commissioned in 83, but Kainji started operation in 1968.
Yes. I recall that.
Yeah. So it's been very challenging but interesting. Um, Now you can see that as we speak, we have recovered over 600 megawatt out of the 760 in Kainji. Yes.
Oh, yeah.
So it's not just recovery, we are also doing modernization, upgrades, modernization and everything. And all the generating units in Kainji are going to be Kaplan, that is, can assist the grid, with low
Balance
frequency, management. And another thing of interest is that Kainji was designed um, to have 12 generating units, but so far only 8 were installed. And what we are doing now in mainstream is that we are expanding the capacity. The civil work has been completed at the time we took over. I mean, at the initial stage, only the machines were not installed, and in the four, so we have now 4 open pits.
Okay.
Because 8 were installed out of the 12, we still have 4. So the civil work had been done, but the machines were not installed. So that's what we are doing now by expanding the capacity now. By next year, we will add 220 megawatt from Kainji.
So let me ask you about that actually. So the 220 megawatts you want to add,
Yes.
are you obligated to sell that to the grid, or could you sell it to eligible customers, this new state electricity markets?
Our initial thought about that is actually to sell it to onto the WAP market.
Okay.
Yes,
That's
because
the West African
Power Pool.
But then there's this conversation that our fellow Nigerians would say, we don't have power in Nigeria. Why are we selling power across the borders?
Yes, but if you want to attract investment with what is happening in Nigeria's market, I think one should not be thinking in that direction, because I'm sure all Nigerians are aware of the outstanding receivables by the Gencos, the 6.8 trillion now.
I thought from a very novice point of view, you hear that number and you always think that's only owed to gas
No,
generators
no,
because of the
no,
cost of gas.
no, no.
So that 6.8 is
Is
across the value
you
chain.
know,
So it's
normally
generations
how it works is that the GenCos bear the cost of
upfront.
the gas.
Mm-hmm.
So the GenCos issue the invoice of energy and gas.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So the invoice is not just about energy or capacity only. It includes the gas component.
Okay.
So it's not separated.
Mm-hmm.
So the total invoice that we talk about 6.8, and I think because it's changing every day.
It's increasing every day.
Yes, it's increasing. That's why it's changing. So it includes the gas component.
Mm.
So the 6.8 is energy and gas.
Wow.
Yes, that's what it is. So the way the market is today, if really you want to attract further investment in the power sector, particularly the generation subsector or value chain, I don't think, no, as it is, I keep saying that that should not even be hyped on much because investors are listening.
Mm-hmm.
What are you telling them?
Mm-hmm.
By
Yeah.
mere mentioning that there's an outstanding unpaid invoice of 6.8,
They'll,
nobody will want to come and
they'll
invest in
leave their money
Nigeria.
in the capital markets and then invest it in
Absolutely.
infrastructure.
That's one. You see, the other beauty of this WAP market is that it secures your energy. It gives you energy security. Why? Because by the time you link up to the network, it does not mean that the flow has to really come from every time has to come from Nigeria. It be either way.
So you're
So
not
it
able to
secures
trade
your you can
bilateral.
also you can also take if you have challenges, you can also take from the other side. The flow can come the other way. So
Interesting.
that gives you energy security. That's what many people don't understand with this connection onto the regional grid.
Which happened, I believe, a few months ago. They tested it
We tested it for 4 hours.
and it worked.
It worked. But then that was a test, and it's really a test. We now found out so many other issues which has to be resolved
Okay.
if that is to be sustained.
Interesting.
Yes.
Hmm.
So, and both NISO and TSP are actually working on those issues that were observed during the test period
Mm-hmm,
so
mm-hmm.
that we can now link permanently
Yeah.
onto the grid. So the idea of us investing to sell onto the regional market. One, you see, not only for Nigeria, because whatever mainstream earns in terms of FX also, benefits Nigeria,
Mm-hmm,
not just the company.
mm-hmm,
It's a Nigerian company.
mm-hmm.
Yes, that's one. We generate what employment in the process, right? So and it secures up this time. Even for Nigeria, you see, if you supply power to any nation, you have a lot of comparative political advantage over that country,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then
not just economic.
yeah, of
So all
course.
those comes into play if you supply power to any nation. These
Mhm.
are some of the benefits that come along with the playing in the regional market.
And also just from a point of view of ensuring income, because as a pro professor I had in business school said, as a business,
Yes,
your most important job is don't run out of cash,
absolutely.
which sounds common sense, but a lot of businesses close because they just ran out of cash.
Yes.
And this would provide you the security to be able to at least have cash flow coming through. So if the debt profile on the Nigerian side keeps getting worse, you have a way to be able to cover
Absolutely.
ups.
Yes. And for us as a company, because in the course of operations and maintenance, about over 90% of the inputs, that's the equipment, the spares, even to some extent, some of our contractors, or majorly, most of our contractors are offshore. Where do we get the dollars and the euro to pay?
Really?
Yeah, of course.
Of course, because it's
You
all.
have to procure these items overseas. We don't produce them here. And they are not They are not off shelf, you know. And
Especially.
yes, and these equipments were installed by the OEM, so we have to bring them on to, So all these things require FX.
That's,
So if we are able to sell across the border and make some FX revenue,
it reduces the pressure.
at least it will reduce the pressure on whatever that we have in Nigeria.
No.
So all these things people don't look at. They just say we don't have power, we don't have power. And really, we really need to. Interestingly, Nigeria started WAP. Nigeria initiated WAP.
Uh,
The idea of WAP came from Nigeria. Yes, that's the irony of all this. And because now the other West African countries realize the importance, they seem to be benefiting from it more than us, who actually initiated this idea.
And our grid has a few issues here and there. So yes, connecting to a more stable grid on the West African side creates a challenge.
Yeah, especially the zone 1, which is the Nigerian side. The other zone 2 and 3 are connected a long time. They've been connected and trading among themselves.
Okay. So
it's only the zone 1, which is Nigeria, Niger.
They've run it long. Now we need to
we're playing kind of catch up.
Interesting.
Yes.
So you spoke about national security as what Hydro could potentially bring up or even address, like the importance of Hydro as it comes to security. Hydro makes up about 25% of our generation profile.
Yes.
When you think 25, you don't think, well, there's that guys that's doing 75 is more important or more useful. But from studying the hydrospace over the past few weeks, it's clear that the hydrospace doesn't get as much accolades and as much recognition as it's supposed to, given all the baseload power you provide. The average Nigerian doesn't know this. Why? Why is that? And then how can we educate Nigerians to understand how important the hydrospace is?
It's very unfortunate that even to a very large extent, our policymakers don't really put some reasonable attention on the need to have more hydropower on our grid. And that can explain why even the public really doesn't. Although to some extent, when we were growing, and if you talk about power generation, people only talk about Kainji in those days. People, although they don't know what is actually happening in Kainji, but they know that Kainji produces power. Because why? As much as possible, the government uses Kainji politically to tell people, because they will say, oh, there's no water in Kainji. That's why you're having power shortage. I've had a lot of politicians using that, to explain, some the usual issues, the usual issues we have on the grid. Interestingly, it's very interesting. There was one time, Minister of Information was telling Nigerians, trying to explain the reasons for the downward availability of power. We were spilling in Kainji then, and he said the lack of power on the grid was due to lack of water in Kainji. But
spilling means we
had too much water. We were spilling. But yet he was telling Nigerians that the lack of power was because of lack of water in Kainji. Because they know that most Nigerians don't know where Kainji even is.
So where is Kainji?
Well, it's very interesting. Kainji, of course, Kainji is located on River Niger. River Niger actually, the initial starting point of River Niger is from the Photojalon Mountains in Guinea Republic.
Interesting.
Yes.
Most Nigerians don't know this.
Yes. So it moved from Guinea to Mali to Niger and then on to Nigeria and down to the sea through the Niger Delta. That is River Niger. Yes. Actually, it's the longest river in West Africa. So Kainji and Jeba hydropower plants are located on River Niger, both of them in Niger State. They are cascaded, of course. Between Kainji and Jeba on the river is about 100 kilometers. Yes, in between. Yeah. And fortunately for us as operators, we have two flood seasons on River Niger because River Niger does not rely on only the inflow within Nigeria during rainy season. So we have two flood seasons. The one that empties into the reservoir during rainy season, that is in the Niger Basin, starting around Sokoto, KB area, and to Niger State. That is the local catchment area, the Niger Basin within Nigeria. But as it is raining in Nigeria, it's also raining upstream. But it takes time for that flood to reach Nigeria, to reach our reservoir. So normally that one arrives around December. That's already dry season here.
So you benefit.
So you benefit, yes. So you see, we reached the initial peak of our reservoir in September. That's when the peak of our reservoir, we reached the peak. And that means that we'll be utilizing that inflow, right? And yes, so while we are using that, I'm beginning to draw down. By around end of November, December, another inflow comes in. We call that one black flood. So we call it, just for distinction, we call it the first one white flood because it's still turbid. The sediments have not actually settled, so it's milky because it's a local inflow.
The one that's coming
But that
all
one,
the
before it
sediments.
reaches here, all the sediments would have settled and the water is very clear and you see it normal water, so we call it black flood. Yeah, so we have the white flood and the black flood.
Interesting.
So that makes Kainji and Jeba operations very unique. We more or less run throughout the year.
Wow.
Yes. So, and the little time that we have significant drawdown is when we use it for maintenance, because we have to take out these units on annual inspection. So, but we take them out only during the drawdown. That's from April, between April and June, July. That's where usually when we are drawing down, and around July we are usually at our lowest.
Okay.
It may be raining around here, but it's not significant enough to make reasonable rise in our reservoir. Yes.
Interesting.
Yeah, so the significant inflow begin to come in towards the end of July, August, and then September, we are there. Yes. But so what we normally do is to ensure that before the end of July, all our generating units are available for operations. Yes, so that we can now utilize and harness the available water in our reservoir. That's how we operate.
Okay, interesting.
Yes.
Yeah. Back in the day, rainy season was far more predictable than it is today.
True.
I remember between 4 and 6 o'clock, almost on a daily basis during rainy season, it would rain, right? It was predictable. You knew what's coming. Well, obviously, this is just from my point of view. But I'm sure your team studies weather patterns. I'm sure you know directly what the rain seasons will look like. there's a conversation that's being had and different arenas that is hydro still viable given the changing nature of rainy season and sometimes a lack of rain? What's your response to that?
It may interest you to note that, water is our fuel.
Mm-hmm.
Without water, you won't operate,
Of course.
at all,
Mm-hmm.
as a hydro operator. So that means that we actually invest so much into ensuring that we utilize the available inflow in our reservoir, to the best of our ability and sustainably. What I'm trying to say here is that we monitor the weather very well.
Mm.
We currently have what we call an inflow forecasting system. It's a
An inflow.
inflow forecasting system.
Okay.
It's a satellite-based system, which we use in monitoring the inflow right from Guinea, not just within Nigeria.
Mm.
I've just told you about the two regimes we have.
Mm-hmm.
So we take interest in knowing the rainfall pattern upstream as well, and monitor the flow, not just the rainfall,
Mm-hmm.
but the flow along the river basin coming down to Nigeria. We monitor it diligently. We have monitoring stations. We also collaborate with those neighboring countries that the River Niger passes through: Guinea, Mali, Niger. We also collaborate very well with Niger Basin Authority, which is headquarters in Niamey.
Okay.
Yes. So with all this, we have reasonable information on what to expect so that we prepare very well.
The levels of rainfall or of water, have you seen a decline over the past few years given climate change concerns?
Yeah, climate change wise, yes, that's another big challenge that we have. Yes, it makes the weather pattern very much less. Uh, you can't predict it. Much less predictable these days, unlike before. So, despite the focusing system that we have, we're improving every day on the technology. We're using technology very much. So much so that because whatever inflow we have, the operations, hydro operations, is highly integrated. It impacts on your budget. The reservoir, availability of water in a reservoir, has impact on your budget because the quantum of energy you generate translates into your income.
Of course.
So you can see it's a highly integrated related issues. Yes, you are talking about the environment, the inflow of water, the availability of machines, and all that. So it's something that really have to normally sit down. It's complicated, very interesting, but complicated, and you have to ensure that you get it right.
Of course.
Yes, and so the climate change issue, fortunately for us, studies have shown that up to the year 2050, the precipitation in the Sahel will actually increase.
Okay.
Yes, there will be a temperature rise of about 2 degrees centigrade, but there will be precipitation increase of between 20 to 30% as a result of that temperature rise in the Sahel region, which is the area of interest as far as we are concerned.
So it sounds very clear that
Yes,
hydros is here to stay.
yes,
It's sustainable, and the fuel, as you say,
yes,
which is rain, which is water, is going to increase
yes.
for the next
But
few
you have to look
decades.
at it from two perspectives. While the prospect of generating more energy is there, you also stand a risk of managing the flood
Okay.
because it will impact on if you don't have a very reliable structure to be able to manage how reliable or how sufficient are your spillway gates to be able to manage the flood, you know, because you have to ensure that whatever that is coming in, you should know how much you can hold, how much you can release, and within what period you can release, so that you don't create other issues. We're talking about sustainability. I'll come to that. You know, these are all issues that's why I say it's integrated. Yes. So there's a risk to it. So what we are doing in mainstream is that in order to be able to manage this expected, because in fact in 2020, is it 2023? Yeah, 2023, we have a 1,000-year cycle inflow into Kainji, 1,000-year occurrence, an inflow that happens only once in 1,000 years.
Wow. So
yes,
how did you respond?
Interesting.
Yes.
So and so fortunately, you know, we were fortunate that the dam structure was in good condition. Our spillways were also in very good condition when this thing happened. And because we know well ahead, because of this inflow focusing, we started releasing water well ahead.
Interesting. Okay.
So it's reservoir management. So we started creating space so that we don't run into hectic operation. We could have led to an overtopping of the dam with a lot of other consequences. So we started releasing well ahead. We made sure that our gates were operating. All our gates, spillway gates, were okay to be able to release sufficient water. You know, and in Jeba, we also have, in addition to the main spillway gates, we have an emergency spillway. In addition,
Okay.
yes, something that has not been provided for Kainji. So what we are doing now after that incident, because both plants have a navigation lock, because they are multipurpose dams, navigation lock where ships can pass across the river. In fact, it was meant that ships will be traveling from Niamey, Niger, or even Bamako, Mali to Niamey and then down the Niger Delta. So navigation logs were integrated as part of the asset. Yes. Unfortunately, they have not been put to use. I think it was only once historically that the nav log was used. So what we are now doing to be able to catch up with this climate change thing is to convert the navigation log into an emergency spillway in Kainji.
Okay.
Yes,
Okay.
that's one. Secondly, you can see it's in line with that we are adding more machines to be able to harness the expected energy.
Yes.
Instead of just allowing the water to pass through the spillway gates, which is a loss.
Yes. So this is where you're looking to do the extra four.
Exactly. That's why we're adding this additional machines in
preparation.
In preparation, yes, to utilize the inflow. So all these things are being put in place to be able to take advantage of the increased precipitation in that region, which we already know. Yes. And so many other things we are doing actually to be what we call climate resilient. Yes. We have no choice.
So before we even jump into that, there's a question around solar and hydro being combined together as a way to address we're getting hotter, so solar panels will obviously work more efficiently, and the water is there. Water creates that base load where solar is a bit intermittent. So mixing them together should really form a nice optimized solution. And to add another layer to that is wind as well, right? Because wind is another form of energy that can be mixed together to now create a very efficient system with the different fuel sources. Mainstream's obviously taking the charge and leading a lot of these initiatives. I'm aware, or there's knowledge that you guys are thinking through some solar installations. What does that look like as it goes to your current operations?
Yes. Hydro basically it's an enabler for VREs, variable renewable energies,
Mm-hmm.
which is solar and wind,
Mm-hmm.
because of their variability. So hydro serves, in fact, it's an enabler because it serves as a battery.
Because it's stable, right?
Because yes, not really only stabilizes. What happens is that, you know, you use the solar during the day when the sun is there.
Mm-hmm.
Then what happens during the night? Because the only way you can have continuous this is to install batteries, which is, very expensive, not economical for commercial use per se in our market. So what this thing is designed to operate such that the hydro serves as a battery
Mm-hmm.
for the solar. So during the daytime, assuming you have a solar of 100 megawatts, for example, so what you need to do is you deploy your solar during the daytime, reserve volume of water equivalent to 100 megawatts during the daytime. And at night, when the solar is not there, you deploy the hydro.
Mm-hmm.
You understand? So it gives you, it smoothens out the variable nature of the solar or the wind. That's why I was
Mm-hmm.
referring to it as a
Okay,
battery.
okay, okay. Mm-hmm.
So the operation is like a hybrid kind of. So you have the solar or the wind and the hydro. So hydro actually has made the VREs more relevant these days. More so now with
Mm-hmm.
pump storage systems that provides energy at a particular time. It doesn't run through like our normal regular schedule that we have.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it gives you like more depending on design, 4, 5, 6 hours kind of energy. Then after depleting the oil, you pump it back to the high level.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, then so it's a cycle.
Mm-hmm.
So that has made the VR is much, much more relevant than ever before. It's a battery, clearly battery. And that's what most countries in Europe are deploying now
Mm-hmm.
because they don't have the luxury of building dams like we do these days. The environmentalists will not even allow it because of the huge reservoir that would take so much
Required, right?
land. You have to, resettle people. It will destroy a lot of habitats, ecosystem, and things like that. But with pump storage, you don't need a dam.
Mm.
You only need two heights, higher level and a low
Oh,
level, and that's it.
interesting.
You can even do it artificially.
Mm.
Yes, you can create an artificial lake upstream with the power plant downstream. So you just allow the water to run, operate the machine, and then you pump it back.
Backup.
Yes. Back up. So that is how the solar or the variable renewable energy works with the hydro.
Mm-hmm.
Hydro is purely an enabler now for
So for
VRS.
mainstream specifically,
For specifically for
what are
us,
you
what
looking
we
to?
are doing, we are working now we've signed an MOU to deploy up to 1,000 megawatt of solar energy.
You know, that's a problem in Nigeria. We have all these big numbers.
Yes, I'm
So
coming.
when's the first one coming?
So, but starting with 100,
100, okay.
and it's a floating solar.
Floating solar.
Yes.
Wait, we haven't done ground solar in Nigeria. Now I
Uh,
want to do floating solar.
yes.
Really?
Yeah. You would ask why floating? What is the
Yes,
benefit?
yes, yes,
You
yes.
see, when we have this large surface of reservoir doing nothing, why can't we utilize it instead of taking the land that can be used for some other things?
And from what I remember, if it's floating, the water can cool the panels as
Exactly.
well.
Yeah. So you are now mentioning some of the benefits of because it cools, and solar panels perform better when they are cooler. The hotter they are, the less efficient they are. So the water actually helps to cool it, and they become more efficient.
Interesting.
Yes, it also helps the aqua culture. I mean, the aquatic lives.
Mm, okay.
Yes,
Yeah,
they breathe in under, and then
we got protection.
yes, and yes, so these are some of the benefits of this thing. We just use the surface of the lake is there doing nothing. Why can't we use it?
100 megawatts.
Yes.
Interesting.
That is the first this thing, and we've signed agreement already with a South African company
Okay.
that is partnering with us, Granville. We're working towards that.
And
So it's but
what's the timeline to get it on the grid?
yeah, no, no, we are still working at some of the what do you call it, the financial thing. So it depends on how we are able to reach how soon can we reach a financial close.
Ah, okay. Interesting.
Yes, we'll not be able to know the timeline. But you know, solar it doesn't take. It's not like hydro. You don't need to build.
Matter of months.
Exactly.
Yeah, so
Yeah. It's up.
no, that's really really fantastic because when we look at all the space you have in the reservoir, it can
Yes.
definitely work. I know
Yeah.
there's a few floating solar conversations in other parts of the country, but at they're about, a couple megawatts here and there.
They don't
You're
have
10,
that.
10, 15 times that.
Yeah, but in our case, we have this large body of
What
water. So why can't we use it? We are using our reservoir for so many things, you know. That's
mm-hmm,
the good thing about hydro. It's highly sustainable.
mm-hmm.
Yes, it brings about so many other things in addition to the power generation.
Yes. So there's also this where being in Nigeria, we've identified we have a lot of great issues to deal with and to really battle with from your point of view as an operator. I know there's been this whole move to make the grid more efficient, and from my perspective, setting up the Nigerian Independent System
Nice one.
Operator, NISO, was a really important step
Absolutely.
towards potentially concessioning, breaking up, and just whatever the new world of TCN could look like. That's a step in the policy direction. But from an operations point of view, how are you able to deal with the current structure of the grid, given the issues it currently has?
Yes. Let me start by emphasizing on how challenging it is, particularly for hydro operations, not to have an evacuation corridor as at when due. You see, we use water.
Could you explain what that
I
means?
said,
The evacuation corridor,
yes,
because
that is an evacuation infrastructure to be able to offtake, the power
mm,
or your available generation or available capacity, right? The challenge is that you, because of the nature of hydro operations, you integrate the availability of your water to your maintenance program, right?
mhm.
And then the generation itself. No, so whenever you put in, you make available a generating unit and have already planned for the quantity of water that will drive it, and then suddenly you are not able to have the evacuation corridor, that is, you are not able to evacuate, what happens to your water?
It's wasted, right?
That's the problem. The problem is that if you are not able to utilize the water, you will be forced to spill it at a point, and which is a great loss, not only to the company, but to the country as a whole, not only economically, but environmentally.
Mm.
You see? So you can see how complex this thing is. So it's been very challenging for us. The fact that we don't have an efficient, transmission infrastructure to be able to take this available energy that we have after making all this investment, putting a lot of money to make these machines available, and then suddenly you are not able to operate, and you have the water which you have already planned for, which will be wasted and, of course, cause some environmental issues. So, to the extent that sometimes we have to really come in to support TCN just to ensure that our energy is evacuated.
Mm.
Yes, we support them in many ways without asking for a dime, without asking for any compensation, whatever, because our interest is to just ensure that our energy
is evacuated.
is evacuated. We do that a lot.
Mm-hmm. Because your installed capacity, as I mentioned earlier, is almost it's 2,600,
It's over
right?
2,000.
But what's actually being evacuated is probably 70% of that number, right?
Absolutely.
So you're wasting 30% of your investment.
A lot, and you know, the investment actually goes into providing the capacity. That's where the money goes into. And you provide that capacity is not utilized, you know.
So
And
then
then
why wouldn't the market allow you to sell energy to other people who will pay for the energy
so
quickly?
that's what we've been clamoring for, the issue of bilateral sales. And you know, the other thing we need to look at is you know, hydro energy actually lends the tariff
Of course,
because it's the cheapest.
cheapest
So if there's anything else, we should be evacuated first.
first.
Efforts should be made to evacuate us first.
And that would make for Nigerians band aid
But
cheaper.
you see, so yes, the regulator has the economic merit order
Mm-hmm.
or dispatch.
Dispatch, yes,
Yes,
yes, yes.
but more often than not, it's not because of constraints in the grid, you know, availability, whatever that is happening with the grid infrastructure. They are not able to implement that fully, unfortunately for us,
Mm-hmm.
which is a big issue. So you can see that the benefits of hydro being cheap is not actually being
Maximized.
maximized
No.
and not allowing Nigerians to benefit from.
Yeah.
So talking about allowing us to sell to other customers, that's the bilateral market.
Conversation, yeah.
Yes, and that's something we've been pushing through because at a point it became a double edge for us.
Mm-hmm.
Why? Now you have a PPA signed with the bulk electricity trading company, the NBET, right? That they will offtake so much. And one, whatever they are able to offtake is not being fully paid. We get about 30%
Mm-hmm.
or 35% invoice paid. That's one side.
Mm-hmm.
Part of it is not evacuated.
So
So you can, yes,
yes, yes, yes.
so double jeopardy for us.
Mm-hmm.
So we have been clamoring for the fact that, okay, let's look at it this way. Tell us how much or what is the quantity of energy you can take and pay. Then we can now reduce the quantity, the capacity that is enshrined in the PPA that we had before. Let's agree. Then you give us the balance that you cannot pay. We sell it to other people that can pay.
And use that as a pathway to
Yes, and also that will also reduce the contingent liability on the
the
government.
government.
All the 6 trillion we are talking about would have gone down, or at a point, in fact, completely wiped out.
This seems like a very common sense conversation that we
Yes,
should be having.
yeah, exactly.
I don't see the rocket science
It's not rocket science.
behind it.
Yes,
But then again,
unfortunately, this is something we've been pushing for to get Embed to sit down with us. Let's agree on how much you can take. Give us the balance. People are there. So many industries are willing to take. Fortunately, in fact, some discourse now are now beginning to see reason why they need to come to us for bilateral. Yes,
of course. So you avoid yeah.
exactly. So with this, I mean, the liquidity in the market will begin to really smoothen out.
Yeah.
Yes. So, but some people don't see it the way you say it's simple. It's not rocket science, but I think some people think it's more than just rocket science.
I'm sure the lawyers in the room would step in and say, no, there's contractual obligations, there's this or there's
story.
No, that's
You see?
yeah.
So it's a big challenge for us. Yes, we have some customers now that we are selling some of the yes,
but it's a fraction.
but exactly,
what
very
you can
fractional.
actually do.
Yes, fractional. And to be honest, is what is keeping us afloat today. The few megawatt that we are selling to, because they pay I said, when do
Power is productive use. They will pay.
no,
They need it to run their business.
exactly.
There's no confusion.
Exactly. And if you ask them put guarantee, 3 months guarantee, they'll put the
Immediately,
guarantee on
immediately.
ground for you.
And
Huh?
just so we test this, the guarantees that they've put in place, how many times have you actually had to draw it? Zero,
No,
right?
no, no,
Because
no
they
reason.
need the power.
They need the power. Interestingly, they have been expanding their business since they contracted this PPA with us.
Mm.
Yes, the business has been expanding, and this is what is needed, creating more jobs for Nigerians.
But is it so to push on that a little bit further? That boils down to the concept. I think the hang up we have in Nigeria is that we still haven't decided, is power a social service or is it a business? Because if it's a business, it's clear what we should be doing to ensure that we actually get to the root cause of making it a business.
Mm.
What are your thoughts on that?
Now, you see, whichever way you look at it, a decision has to be taken and it has to be walked through. If it's a social service, who takes responsibility?
Not the
As,
guy that owes you 6 trillion.
you see, exactly. If it's a social service, the government has to be responsible because they have decided to privatize the sector. We are generating companies that source our funding through the market, through everything. So we cannot provide social service. So if the government decided that they want to subsidize Nigerians, so be it. But it has to be seen to be so. We have to be make whole. They have to make us whole. That's on that
Hmm.
side.
Hmm.
But that will not work, you know. So a decision has to be made. That's why I keep advocating for the need to really liberalize the market.
What does
What I
that
mean
look
by
like?
liberalize is
Yes.
that, see, all this embed of a thing shouldn't be there at all. Embed was put in place as an interim arrangement just to stabilize the market at the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, it was not meant to go beyond 5 years.
5 years, yes.
I think we are all aware of that. Working towards that, by now the market should have stabilized and moved from this vesting contract arrangement into bilateral markets. If we had done that, all this issue of 6.8 trillion, whatever,
But is the
all
market,
this issue of ban A, ban B,
but is the market players down at the consumer level, the distribution companies, are they financially viable enough to sign a bilateral contract with you as mainstream?
yes, some of them have realized that, yes, they can think outside the box by looking at their customer base. There are customers that are willing to pay whatever amount of tariff, the amount they have to pay as a tariff,
Mm-hmm.
so long as the power is there reliably,
Mm-hmm.
right? So the discourse are now looking at that and finding out those clusters, those types of customers that really are interested more in having reliable power than how much it costs. So that's why they're coming to us to buy power at a negotiated price and then selling to those customers.
Mm.
And they will improve, of course, the infrastructure in those areas to be able to deliver the power. Since, unfortunately, the tariff is not cost reflective generally. The issue of tariff has been politicized in Nigeria.
Mm-hmm.
It's highly politicized. That's why you cannot have cost reflective. Whenever even the regulator's hands sometimes, uh,
A little time.
tight. Yes, are tight.
Mm-hmm.
Whenever they propose any tariff increase to go towards cost reflective,
Because
the political powers don't allow that to happen for political reasons. You cannot run a power market like this.
yeah.
It cannot work. It will never work.
So do you remember Dr. Diko at NERC?
Yes, no.
I worked with him maybe 8, 9 years ago. So I
Okay.
ran into him on the plane. I don't remember where I was going, but I ran into him, but he had not moved over to ECOWAS.
He was in Herrera.
Yes, yes, yeah, precisely, yes.
Yes,
Yeah,
in Ghana.
in
I know
Ghana.
him very well.
Yes. So I ran into him and I was asking him, how's the market in Ghana? He said, like, I have a generator that they had outage like once, and he went to start it. The battery had died.
Yes, because he doesn't use it.
Yes. And I asked him why. He's like, Ghana has made the choice that energy and power is not a political conversation. It's a must have, not from social service, but just from it must be available. So the government has stayed away and created an enabling environment.
Absolutely.
Which is what we need here.
Yeah.
If we don't have that environment, we're all going to be having the same conversation.
That is why I'm saying that we just have to take a decision. No political interference. So long as there's political consideration to this thing, we're not going to get out of the woods. Look, let me tell you, people say, if it is cost reflective tariff, Nigerians will not be able to pay and all this. See, in Niger here, how compared to Nigeria, Niger, Burkina Faso, for example, I know their system, their market very well. Talking about the ability and our purchasing power and everything. You can't compare now with those countries.
You can't compare our gross domestic product, our GDP per capita to theirs.
Exactly.
But their tariff is higher than ours.
So what I'm saying is that their collection is 100%. Niger and Burkina.
100%.
100% collection. And their tariff is higher than ours because, okay, for Niger now, Niger buy power from us. They add some premium and sell to their customers, and yet they collect 100%. So what have you got to say?
How are they doing it? Is it technology or is it just normal collections? Because 100% is incredible.
100%. I can tell you this. We work with them. We supply them power.
Huh. So
but
that
we also, I'm very close to the managers of the Burkinabe system as well, even to some extent Benin here. You know, so there's no need. It's not rocket science again. It's a matter of discipline. The government has made its mind and just decided that this is you have to pay or no power.
so
No issues, and there's no ban A, ban B.
same.
So unless if maybe you are on three-phase, or industrial, something like that. That's all. Otherwise, there's nothing like ban A and ban B.
Interesting.
And yet they pay. Despite, so the issue is not about whether people are capable or not capable. Everybody requires this power. Even people in the village, they are not, they at least they want to charge their listing. You see, they do a lot of things with power, and they use even if it's I pass my neighbor, at least they buy petrol.
And that cost has
Abi, is it not higher?
Yes. And also the conversation is, if you think through diesel and fuel, I'll just use fuel as an example.
Yes.
2010, 65 naira. They wanted to increase it, Wahala everywhere. They didn't. But eventually they did. And when the president came on, he said subsidies are gone.
Yes.
Imagine if that wasn't said and this war in the Middle East took off. That means the government's liability on paying for petroleum would go through the roof. Absolutely. And they cannot finance it.
They can't afford it.
Which we're going to see on the power side, because cost of gas.
Now you can see it may even get worse.
It's gonna, yes. And so it's that conversation where I wish in Eagle Square that day you would have said no subsidies for power,
yes,
no subsidies for fuel. That would destabilized the sector for a few months.
Just for a while.
But people stuff like at the end of the day. Yes, people pay for it. And I just feel that that's something that we need to do. Government needs to say, you know what, this is private. You guys sort it out.
If the discourse are not doing well, let them get out, and somebody that is willing to really invest and push this business forward, let them come and take over. It's as simple as that. Because the actual major problem is that they have not been investing. We've been making more investment at the generation value chain than downstream. Yes. That has been the issue, both in the transmission, which is government, and then distribution. So you can see the uptake, the increase in available generation is because of the privatization. Yeah.
You
So
you brought back how many units at
at
Kainji?
Kainji,
And same thing with the guys at Transgens Corp. There's so
yes,
many things that happen to shore up generation.
yes,
Now it's getting the last mile to pay for it, and you can get your money back, which hasn't quite happened.
exactly. So so I think the government, I told you, it's just matter of decision making. If they want to make it social service, let it be so. Let them bear whatever the consequences, which is not practically possible. So why should we go that route?
Mm-hmm.
Why let them just put their hands off? Let people pay for the energy they need or they want to use, and that's it.
Precisely. And then
That would have solved the problem. That's my opinion.
no, and I think it's generally the correct one because it alleviates this issue of government this, government that.
Yes.
Then you now think through this other layer of state markets
That's
as now another point. And
that complicates the whole thing.
it makes it because NERC has been around for 16, 17 years.
Yes.
And building capacity at that state level is going to be a tough task because
It will take
you
some
don't have
time.
the people to do it. But I still think government, like you said, needs to make that decision once and for all to say, you know what, this is now your issue to deal with. I'm just going to create an enabling environment.
And that is the best practice all over the world. That is what is done. There's no political interference. Yes, the regulator needs to be there to regulate.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't stop any private participation in the sector because
Mm-hmm.
you have a government regulator, and the regulator is actually supposed to be independent.
Mm-hmm.
And apart from that, if you want to build a power plant, you want to build a power line, you will have to get a permit, which is normal. There's the authorization from government to proceed.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what. So let there be process.
To get it
Because
going.
I'm not talking about even whatever we intend to do, it has to include the transmission subsector as well.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, we are not get. If you have increased generation, you are not able to transmit. So what have you done?
Yeah,
So the whole thing has to be through the whole value chain.
that's why it's called a power value chain as opposed to
Yes, because
um,
whatever happens to one will affect the other two.
to the world.
Yes.
And we can even say that the reason the sector is where it's at is because collection hasn't increased at a distribution level because that reduces cash flow
Yes.
that can then go back
The
up.
billing, the collection, even the technical losses because there are no investments.
Mm-hmm.
So the technical losses are still very high. People still have to pay or buy their transformer. People have to buy their poles. It's still happening. Eh?
Oh,
So it's really
no, it's really dynamic to think through what the sector could look like if we had the right environment to move the conversation forward. There's a report that I read a few months ago that says that the actual capacity of power that Nigerians actually need is north of 100,000 megawatts. And if you hear numbers like that, you now think about it from a businessman's point of view, the financial flow of what that could mean.
Yeah.
So you now say, wow, if we just shore this up, this market grows and our GDP would double
Even more than double.
year over year.
Yeah.
So for me, it's a really precarious point that we have to fix the sector, but it can't be done from let's wait for government to do something. Private sector has to start driving that change, and mainstream has shown that it is not waiting for government. It's moving things far
The
along.
way Kainji was left to rot and we turn it around within this short period shows clearly that There's no need for government in business at
Mm-hmm.
all, at all. And
And
what we are doing, in fact, even in Jeba, because Jeba, the design, the turbines are actually different from Kainji. They are purely base load machines. Yes,
mm,
that doesn't adapt to it's just about 25% of its capacity that within that band that it can be flexible
mm,
to the happenings on the grid, the frequency, the
okay,
voltage. Yeah,
okay.
yes. But what we are now doing is that we are redesigning the machines.
Mm,
Yes, to be able to adapt to the grid
good
frequency.
conditions.
Yes, grid conditions.
Yeah.
These are things that I mean, ordinarily we are concessionaires. Would have said, after all, after 30 years, we're out.
Yeah.
But yes, no. We feel that um, we need to support the grid
Mm-hmm.
because what is happening on the grid is impacting heavily on us.
And
The,
affecting.
the frequency of system outages and all that, it has serious financial implication
Mm-hmm.
on us.
Yes, yes, yes.
Every time a machine trips
The,
on load, you can just imagine how
imagine
much
the
impact
cost.
it has. Yes, it's a lot of cost
Mm-hmm.
because it causes a lot of damage and it increases the rate of maintenance.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yes, these machines are heavy machines. They are supposed to be running smoothly without any
Any
trip.
issues. Yeah.
It's only when you shut it down that is planned outage, but not forced outage. So
Mm.
it has a lot of implication on us. So we are now redesigning the machines, to be able to
Withstand.
withstand, not just withstand, but to support the grid controller in managing the grid.
Mm.
Yes.
Interesting. So, the next time have you on, because clearly we have a lot more to talk about. Mainstream's also taken a really interesting approach by acquiring a distribution company in hopes to be able to run a vertically integrated
Vertically
system,
integrated, yes.
but now in private sector. So that way it's run more efficient, more can share services,
Yes.
and then also be able to really provide energy without having to go through a bulk trader, the
Exactly. A
national
third party can.
precisely. Hydropower in Nigeria is really looked at as, like we said earlier, something that people kind of forget about. But to run an effective hydro system, you need to think through the sustainable angle of ensuring that you are running the system one well, but
Yes.
also looking out for the environmental issues and also for the social issues. How has mainstream really focused on that to ensure that you're able to do all three of these buckets at the same time?
Yes. As a responsible hydro operating company, we try as much as possible to operate within the international best practice. Now, we are also a member of the International Hydropower Association.
Oh, really?
Yes, and in fact, I'm a vice chair. Yeah, I'm a vice chair of a Hydropower Association.
How do you
I'm
have
on the board
time?
of
How do you have time to do all this? Mainstream, not NISO, IHS.
well, that's how I find myself with mainstream. I'm also chairing ISAP,
Wow. All
the
right.
initial stakeholders advisory panel of NAC. Yes, I'm the
Mhm.
chair. I'm on the board of NISO. I'm also on the board of International Hydropower Association. Yes. So the IHA, through the San Jose Declaration, states clearly that the only acceptable hydropower is sustainable hydropower going forward.
Mm,
It's a declaration. And sustainable means a lot of things. It touches on the environmental aspect of how you do the operations, environmental and social, of course, how climate resilient you are, you know, how responsible do you actually operate this asset, you know, because hydropower, interestingly, it's a kind of business that touches on several aspects of people's lives because it is usually integrated. It's multi-purpose. Most dams are multi-purpose. They are not built for only power generation. You see navigation, flood control, irrigation, all those things. And for you to do it responsibly, you have to ensure that you don't impact negatively on the economy, the people around you, and even the ecosystem generally, the habitat. You know, we just have to ensure that, for example, even if you have people fishing on the river, you ensure that they don't overfish. And recent regulation requires that if you are designing a hydropower plant, you have to include a fish pass.
Interesting.
Yes, it's part of the sustainability. Fish pass has to be there where fish can move upstream and downstream. Because normally, dams block the passage of water. So what happens to the fish if they want to migrate?
They're stuck.
Yes, they got stuck. So these are all part of it. So it's just being responsible. I'm using the word responsible in operating the asset. So we think about climate. We've just discussed about climate impact and how resilient you can be to ensure that your operation continues, and also to ensure that if you don't manage it well, you end up releasing too much water at a point, impacting on the community. And if you don't release, interestingly, if you don't release water at the right time, even the people upstream will be complaining. Yes, now if you keep the water for too long, it will accumulate and start taking over their farmlands and their settlements. You understand? So you have to balance even the way at what time do you start releasing the water, how much quantity of water you release. These are all part of sustainability. So they don't impact on the communities living upstream and downstream. What about your corporate social responsibility? Mainstream, for example, has a foundation, which is a platform for our CSR.
Which is very active. You do a lot of
Very
work.
active because it is hinged, or this thing on three, four areas of consideration: education, health, empowerment, and environment, amongst others. But these are the key. Yes. And we've done quite a lot in impacting on the lives of the people in our catchment area. In fact, even up to the Delta area. We've built schools and things in the Edo and even rivers.
Oh, wow.
Yes, not only in Niger or Kebbi or Kwara or Kogi. No.
All the way down to the
Yes,
Delta.
yes.
Interesting.
Yes. We've spent billions because we allocate 1%. It may look small, 1% of our revenue, not profit.
Revenue.
Yes, to the foundation.
And power is a margin business, very low margin. So that 1% is a significant portion of
absolutely
profits. Wow.
Yes. So these are some of the things we normally do. So in being sustainable, it's not a choice. Where you just have to be. It's a requirement now. And as you decide to be or to operate sustainably, you are also expected to be certified. And Mainstream has applied to be certified. We want to be certified with a sustainable system because the IHA has what they call Hydropower Alliance, right? Yes, Hydropower Sustainability Alliance, sorry, which monitors and manages all issues related to sustainability in the hydropower scheme globally. So we have applied. The assessment is ongoing. The assessors have come and gone a few times. And we hope that before the end of this year, we will be certified and we'll get a certificate for being a sustainable hydropower operation.
And this will be
it's a very rigorous process. Very rigorous.
Kind in Nigeria, right?
First of its kind in Nigeria.
Wow.
Yes, because the assessors go up to speaking with the people in the village to see how we impact on their lives. It's part of the requirement for getting certified, apart from our operations.
So in that regard,
So it goes beyond just technical, environmental, climate change, everything. Yes. So it's really if as a country, I think Nigeria is now beginning to catch up. And I understand they are beginning to now to come up with some legal framework for this sustainable operation of some of these assets. Yes, not just hydropower. I think some other industries like that, which will be good for us a nation. And some organizations globally now making it mandatory that you have to be certified. Uh, you know, you have to have a sustainability certificate for you to access their funds. HSBC, for example, yes, is one of those financing agencies that if you are not certified, you cannot access their funds. And so many other organizations like that. But there are some organizations that does not utilize any power until
that's what I'm saying.
yes, yeah. It has to come from a certified, sustainably certified generating station. So that's what we are doing in mainstream. We've always been in the forefront. We will continue to be so. And besides, since we have this appetite for investment across the border, we are looking at opportunities across Nigeria. So we just have to, show that we are operating within the best globally acceptable practice. Yes.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, sir, for your time.
Thank you.
Really, really nice.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm grateful. And thank you, everyone. Yes.